Well, hello everyone.
Hello.
General Cano? I'm sorry.
No, I mean that's something to close
Sorry.
with. It's
Sorry.
hello there. Jeez.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
No wonder Disney's cutting back on Star Wars and
Oh, jeez. I saw that
you're a
today.
fake fan.
Bob Eager's like, we didn't realize that putting out too much Marvel and Star Wars stuff was gonna make everybody lose focus of what the whole IP was.
You don't
No
say.
kidding.
You don't say.
You realize that making lots of garbage content for Lucasfilm properties is not a good idea. Speaking of which,
Indiana Jones.
Dial of Destiny.
Yeah, boy. I'm joined by my usual buddies, Justin and Jared here. Thanks for coming, guys. We all saw Indiana Jones and the mediocre of Disney.
No, it's the dial of mediocrity. That's what
I like the mediocre of Disney.
mediocre.
I mean, it's all accurate. It's hard to find a word that better describes this movie besides mediocre. Maybe nostalgic bait.
Yeah, that's
nostalgic. Yeah.
That's for sure. I will say that the experience of watching this movie, in which all of us actually were there together, and then some other people were there as well, such as another friend of ours, Aaron Gray, who I've participated in a podcast of his recently, and then of course, my wife was there, my parents were there, Jared's mom was there. We had rented out this room. This auditorium called a screening room.
That's pretty sweet. We should do that for other movies.
No, yeah. I mean, it was cool. Like, we had our own little private room where there was just 8 seats. We filled every single seat, and so we basically had a private screening to ourselves without having to pay hundreds of dollars or whatever.
Let's make this a movie theater review instead of Indiana Jones.
Stop.
I already did that a month ago.
Keep it focused. That's true.
I think that's one thing that I do want to make clear really quick is like, you can watch a movie that you don't love, but I mean, the experience of watching it itself with the people that you love, like, that still holds value to it.
Yes.
I mean, you can still remember it for that experience alone, but I mean, I just thought I would throw that out there before we end up showing or sharing whatever thoughts we have on the movie itself, which, any opening comments either of you have on this?
I do want to say that Indiana Jones ended perfectly 30 years ago with
Last Crusade.
I mean, it was literally a riding off into the sunset ending.
Really didn't need these last 2 movies.
I will say this. As much crap as I've maybe given Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I do like where that movie landed.
Yes.
In that he was married to Marion, they had a kid, they were really happy. Indy didn't need to go on any more adventures. You know what I mean? Like, as much junk as Crystal Skull was, which really, to me, this isn't a Kingdom of the Crystal Skull thing, but you kind of have to look at these movies hand in hand, to me.
Like talking about the prequels of Star Wars compared with the sequel trilogy.
That's true.
A lot of what was done with the sequel movies was in direct contrast and reaction to the audience response to the prequel movies.
Yeah, that's true.
Episode 7 was made specifically to get away from the prequel just stench that they wanted to get away from. And this movie was clearly made getting rid of a lot of the stuff that people didn't like about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, it was very reactionary.
I think so.
I mean,
for better or worse.
Mutt was not a well-beloved character in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but he was still a character. He was still there. Well, people didn't like him, so what do? He died in Vietnam!
Which, I mean, there was somebody that I was watching. I've done some research. I watched Jeremy John's video. I watched Chris Stuckman's video. Harrison Ford was on a podcast with Conan O'Brien talking about the movie. And he was like, I wanted to show a snapshot of what an 80-year-old Indiana Jones would be. A grouchy old man or something. Which I think is fine if it relates to the story. And I think when you meet older Indiana Jones, I think that based on where he's at as a character with separating from Marion and stuff, I appreciate where we meet Indiana Jones, because based on what he's going through, like, it makes sense that he'd be a grouchy old dude.
But did they need to put him through all of that? He was a grouchy old dude in the last movie.
No. What I'm saying is, where I meet him is fine. Are there story beats before that I would have changed? Yes. I would have found a way to add Short Round to this movie. I would have found a way to have Mutt in this movie. There's a whole other thing about that, but I like at least that Harrison Ford gave a crap about being Indiana Jones. Regardless of what the story said, he actually came and was, I think, giving his all in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, you can't watch this movie and think that Harrison Ford didn't care. Like, he's talked in interviews about how much he dislikes,
Han Solo.
Han Solo. Like, it's no secret he doesn't like that character. But, he's a very professional actor. Like, not just like a nerd icon, but he's someone who really is dedicated to his craft.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with his actual legitimate appreciation for Indiana Jones, it results in a guy who showed up for work. You can tell that he loves this character, that he actually wanted to do something with Indiana Jones that was worthwhile in this final movie. We'll certainly argue as to whether those things were, worth exploring. I know Justin's already kind of touched on that, and I'm sure that me and Jared will, but in terms of the commitment that the star of this franchise gave to this role, like, it's unmistakable here.
He was unmistakably the background character for another version of this movie. I agree.
Oh, man.
Now,
there was about 2/3 of the film where he was not the leading character in the film.
Fair point.
You're kind of right.
This was not Indiana Jones. Even though I will agree with you that he did act, he did try. And there was one scene in particular where he is talking about Mutt and joining Vietnam,
that
where you could feel some actual emotion and feel some genuine care. But there was so much in the movie where, if this was his effort to give it all to Indiana Jones, we didn't see all Indiana Jones. We saw an old man who's stumbling around and things just happen around him to other characters.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues I have with Dial of Destiny, is that, and I recognize that part of this is due to the limitations of Harrison Ford being 80 years old. Like, you're not really going to expect him to be incredibly physical in the same way that he was, even in Crystal Skull. Like, the man was, like, in his mid-60s at that point, and so he was already kind of pushing his physical limitations, but with what they try to do with him here in this movie, there just wasn't enough I think they could really do with him stunt-wise, practicality-wise, to where they could find reasons for him to be an active participant in the story. It honestly just feels like he's being dragged around the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Like, he's dragged into the conflict, for one thing.
When he's dragged at the end of the movie, getting the plane.
Yeah, I mean, like,
quite literally, he gets shot, and he doesn't do a single thing for the rest of the movie.
Besides stand up and talk about Continental Drift.
The choice for him to stay in Syracuse is ripped Rumman. He's knocked out cold.
He gets punched, the film goes black, and we don't even get to see the last part of the movie.
Yeah, how they freaking get back to 1969.
I'm sure that would have been an adventure. Would have been interesting to watch, but no. Wombat gets to punch him, remind him who the real star of this movie is.
They really dodged some bullets there with that ending, though, if we want to get into that now.
Oh, man.
You can get into that if you want.
I'll say this.
Cat's out of the bag.
I will say this. I don't mind her as an actor. I think most of what happened in this movie was purely script-wise.
Yes.
The same way that Hayden Christensen's get bagged on for episode 3. I don't think he himself is a bad actor, to some degree. But I think that a lot of his choices were kind of forced on him for that role. You know what I mean? By the script.
Yeah. The script did not make her a character that you enjoy.
No, for most of the movie she was annoying.
Whether the actress or not is good, that's fine. But that's kind of irrelevant because the character herself is kind of a terrible. She's everything that Indiana Jones would hate. Yeah. Like, remember his first villain in
Raiders of the
Lost Ark was a guy who hunts down artifacts and sells them
on the black market,
and he hated this guy with a passion. And so he finds out that Wombat's doing is like, well, I just better go get the artifact back then, and now I'll work with her so she can steal more artifacts. It's like, that's not Indiana Jones. This is Wombat's story. And with the leaks, which I am so incredibly glad if those leaks are accurate, which it does kind of seem that way, considering
the ending
and the director meltdown on Twitter after they did leak, where
director meltdown. I didn't hear about that.
He did have a bit of a meltdown.
Go ahead.
Anyway, the original ending, as it was planned, according to the leaks, was that instead of ending up in Syracuse during the Roman times, they would end up back in World War II. And they would encounter a younger Mads Mikkelsen character and a younger Indiana Jones. And the younger Indiana Jones would die, leaving a big gaping hole in history, which Wombat would have to go and fill by donning his hat and going and doing all of the different scenes from the original Indiana Jones movies. There is some leaked footage, leaked photos that I sent you guys, and that showed her wearing the hat and going into the temple where the original rolling boulder scene was and things like that. It is no secret that they had to reshoot the ending at some point. And so if that was the case, we really dodged a tremendous bullet, even though a good portion of the movie still seems like it's leading up to that.
That final act is definitely something. I can appreciate that, like, it is certainly something that was trying to take a risk, you know.
It was the most unique part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have told you that at the beginning of the movie that at the end we were literally going to see Indiana Jones and company going to, 300 BC or whatever it was.
To meet Archimedes.
Yeah, to meet Archimedes.
In a Nazi plane that's shooting all these Romans.
Right. And he's like, oh yeah, maybe that's what John the Beloved was seeing in Revelations.
That's the dragon right there.
Man. The last 2 or 3 or 5 minutes of this movie, I actually really liked. Because it still lands at that ending of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where he ends up with Marion and he's back with Sala and they're all hanging out.
I mean, none of it is earned, but it does.
No, but they had to figure out a different ending than her cavorting through time.
It is a better outcome, yes.
It's a better outcome. I don't know. The ending of this is, I like the ending, but I didn't go into it. The part of me that is okay with this movie is I went in thinking that it was not going to be as good as the original 3.
I mean,
but I went into it thinking it's not going to be as good as the original 3, and it's not even really going to be as good as
Kingdom of the
Crystal Skull. Which, I mean, thoughts aside, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we've even talked about this, is still feels like an Indiana Jones movie to some degree. Besides the swinging on vines and communicating with monkeys. That part is my least favorite thing that ever happened.
But it did have all of the beats that an Indiana Jones movie should.
Right.
This movie had a lot of those beats as well, but they were so much more forced, in my opinion. Like, one of the classic Indiana Jones tropes is that the big muscle-bound guy gets tricked and dies.
Oh, yeah.
Usually in a pretty horrible way. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, he got pushed into the propellers. And
Temple of Doom,
Temple of Doom. Yeah, there was that one guy that got absolutely...
Same actor, I think.
It is the same actor.
So in this movie, you're like, oh, they have a big guy. How's he gonna die? And you're waiting and waiting, and finally there's a scene where the new child actor who shouldn't be there at all, like he has no reason in the story to ever be in.
What did Aaron call it? Dollar Store Short Round?
Yeah.
Where Dollar Store Short Round not only pulls him off of a bridge, figures out how to swim while he's handcuffed to the big guy, manages to undo the handcuffs, handcuff the big guy to an underwater grate, and then swim away after not knowing ever how to swim beforehand, and showing zero panic in this whole situation. It's like, oh, we have to have the big guy die, because that's what happens in an Indiana Jones movie. So, I guess he does that. It doesn't affect the movie whatsoever. Like, there's all these Indiana tropes in this movie, but it's like, why did this happen? Well, because an Indiana Jones movie has to have them.
I do wonder if, filmmaking has a lot to do with that. And I don't know if we were wanting to go in a different trajectory with what we were talking about now, but, we mentioned Crystal Skull a little bit ago and how Justin was saying that the movie still felt like an Indiana Jones film. You contribute a lot of that to Spielberg himself. We're talking about possibly the greatest film director ever. This guy has
True.
made so many indelible classics that, you know, you know, classics that have certainly benefited blockbuster cinema, but also, art house cinema, if you want to argue that. He's very versatile, but like just a very capable action director who knows how to frame things in such a way to where there is serious tension. And
Are you leading to the fact that he kind of pulled away from the movie after seeing how it was, and now he's only listed as a producer off on the side?
I mean, I guess you could say. I mean,
Was Lucas a producer too?
I think he was to an extent, like executive
Maybe he
producer.
stayed off to the side and just looked at the emails and went, "It's probably
He
fine."
probably feels the same way about Hollywood that Tom Holland does, if not more so.
Well, George Lucas also
Yeah.
was over with Hollywood before he even made the first Star Wars. But it's a
Right.
different story.
Right, he was off making Empire Strikes Back was basically an independent movie.
Yeah, pretty much because he funded it, didn't he?
Yeah, he funded the whole thing
Yeah,
with his money from the original.
of course.
So yeah, going back to Indiana
Sorry.
Jones.
The Spielberg Indiana Jones movies, they all felt tactile and they all felt very physical and dirty and just you felt like these guys were in the mud, trying to make something worthwhile. But also the shots were composed in such a way to where you really get a full scale sense of everything that's going on. And a lot of times it just kind of felt like the action in this movie was very, for lack of a better word, sloppy?
Fake.
Yeah, which is wild to me, because this movie cost over $300 million to make, and you have a director who's actually very capable of making, really good action movies.
James Mangold.
Yes.
He does work.
Done good. We all watched Logan. Logan was pretty good. That I think is the only one that I've watched of him that he's made, but Logan was really good.
Yeah, and I can list off some other really good examples, like,
Using older actors in action scenes.
that too.
That too.
I mean, you got the 310 to Yuma remake. That one's really good.
I forgot he made that, didn't he?
Yeah, and he did Ford v Ferrari too.
Still have to watch that one. I haven't watched that one yet. My mistake.
But yeah, even with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which had so many issues with CGI and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the monkeys. There was that scene with the two vehicles going in the jungle chase. You
Yeah.
still felt as if these characters are jumping from car to car, punching each other, and going into the action. Was there lots of CGI? Absolutely. The Isle of Destiny, it felt as if none of these characters were even in the same room with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that tuk-tuk chase was hilarious to me watching it because the CGI was so blatant for 90% of it that I didn't feel like I was watching characters doing things. I felt like I was watching their heads moving around on a blue screen that happened to show exciting movement on the background.
I felt that a lot during the prologue, with the sequence on the train. My goodness. Especially when all the Nazis are being ripped apart by the 50 caliber machine gun.
Which was just so happened to just shoot all of these Nazis in a perfect line, leaving no other Nazi characters besides Mad Mikkelsen and the commander. But wait, how did Mad Mikkelsen survive taking that wood bar to the face at 60 miles an hour?
Like, to the face. That dude should have died.
And he didn't even have a scar in the 60s.
I actually
thought the whole, I thought when I was first seeing it that there was going to be like a lead-in, like, oh, he actually did go back into past and he stopped himself from getting hit. So that's why he doesn't have a scar already. But no, it's just something that the director forgot to mention.
I do that whole scene though. I felt like was more Indiana Jonesy than the rest of the movie.
Yeah. It was the most enjoyable action sequence in the whole movie.
I wish they could have changed his voice so that it didn't sound like an 80-year-old man talking from 30-year-old Harrison Ford.
They did a good, I think, job with... The only thing I can really compare this to was when they did Mark Hamill for Mandalorian, right?
Right.
And you'd think...
Lucasfilm.
Well, it's still Lucasfilm. But even then, like, the Mark Hamill voice that comes out of DH Mark Hamill is, I think, closer than what...
Well, he's also a voice actor, so he knows how to modulate his own voice.
But still, like, they gotta have things that they can do to make voice a little...
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Well, an example that was very commonly discussed was Captain Marvel with Samuel L. Jackson. He was in almost that entire movie CGI'd younger.
Mm-hmm.
Did it show in his movements that he's an older man running around? Yes. Like, you can see that he's struggling to move quite as fast as everyone else. But that CGI was pretty excellent in Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
You did not know, you can't see it or hear it, that he's 30 years older than what he is in the movie.
So hire that guy for Indiana Jones. Or girl, whoever did it. Or
The
team.
entire studio,
You'd think they're
they're
across the hall.
overworking CGI studios, the bone, as is, so.
They're across the hall from each other. They could have stopped in for 5 minutes and gone, hey, you probably should dip that pitch down and lift that up.
But it's 2 weeks to release. You telling me this now?
And that's Hollywood. That's showbiz, baby.
You're not going to see your wife for the next few weeks. Go tell your kids you love them.
We're just going to work them until they're destitute.
Right? Oh,
And
man.
you make it so that there's an entire Roman battle with Syracusan war machines facing them in the background, because we just messed up the ending, so you have to make this whole new ending in a month.
Because what I would be interested to know is because they did this with test footage, right? I would wonder if this is the same movie that was shown at the
At Cannes Film
Film Festival.
It probably
think?
was.
It probably was, because by then it was already well and done. That was only a couple months ago. The reshoots for the ending were about a year ago, half a year ago.
Something like that. I mean, at Cannes Film Festival, like, there were professional film critics that were there who published their reviews, after seeing this. So it's like, if
They weren't. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it was
it was
pretty low.
rotten. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty low. And even as much as I detest IGN's review system, because I think they're...
It's okay. You can say you just hate critics in general.
No, I don't hate critics in general.
Oh,
I hate IGN gobbling money from anybody and handing out sevens like they're candy. That's a different story. What I'm saying is, even IGN was still like, Harrison Ford did really good, but the rest of the movie's not great.
I feel like if Harrison Ford was actually the moving figure in this movie, it would have been a lot better, but he wasn't. Half the time he's sitting down while someone else is doing something.
There was an interesting theory posed forward, or a pitch for a movie that I came across in doing my research for this video. Usually I don't research, I just kind of spout stuff, but like this time I actually looked at stuff.
You've changed, man.
No,
You've
yeah.
changed.
For the better.
There was a pitch that was put forward about grouchy old Indy at 80 retiring, but the new professor coming in to replace him and be like, whoa, you're Indiana Jones, you've done all this cool stuff. He's like, well, that's not even my greatest adventure. And be like, will you tell me about it? And they sit down in his office and have like a drink or something. And he goes, this is my greatest adventure. Cut to younger whoever they recast for Indiana Jones. Be that Alden Ehrenreich or the other guy that was an Indiana Jones favorite for a while, or Han Solo favorite. I can't remember his name. Anthony. No.
Oh,
Don't
man.
say that. Oh, no.
Rest in peace, man.
I miss River Phoenix. That whole sequence in the beginning of Last Crusade is wonderful. And he is a really good actor. Anyway, that's a different story. Alden Ehrenreich or Anthony and Gruber, I think, was the other one that they were kind of looking at casting.
Weren't they looking at Jack Rayner, too?
Maybe. I don't know who. But
Tom Holland.
don't say that.
Stop with Tom Holland.
But you think, you cut to young Indiana Jones right before World War II. And it's like, we're going to find MacGuffin number 4. And blah, 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 blah.
The dial.
The story happens. And then the story ends, and Indiana Jones is like, all right, I'm out of here. And Short Round comes and picks him up as a taxi driver.
Or Sala.
Or whoever. But the guy in the pitch said Short Round comes to pick him up. And he leaves. And the new professor goes into Indiana Jones's office, and there's a secret door behind the shelf. And you find all these journals of Indiana Jones's exploits. And that's how you make new Indiana Jones movies, is this guy reading journals of Indiana Jones.
Isn't that just the ending of Dark Knight Rises?
Yes. But still. But it's... I mean, if they were really trying to make this recast work and reboot the whole franchise and do that, that gives you a way open to get a new guy who you can... a younger actor who you can say, this is Indiana Jones, He's not Harrison Ford, but we're still going to make Indiana Jones movies going forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
But you got to remember, this is a Kathleen Kennedy production. We need a brunette woman that's most likely British to be the main actor now.
I don't know necessarily if, like, I know it's a meme to clown on Kathleen Kennedy, but, like, I don't know if I'd necessarily pin it on her either, because if you look at the credits going back all the way to Raiders of the Lost Ark, she was a producer on that.
Oh, yeah.
And she's been a producer on all of them.
Well, I'm just saying that in this case, she did specifically ask for this actress.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, all right. I mean...
But yes, I agree with you, Justin. That would be a solid way to... If a reboot is what we're going for, that would be a good way to do it. Tell new adventures with a younger actor. Is it the best way? No, I would prefer that Indiana Jones ended Last Crusade. But
yes.
But if we are doing that, I'm not opposed to that pitch that you just said. But instead, we have Dial of Destiny.
Which the one thing I'll say about this, the last kind of thing, I'm glad that for sure this is the end. There is no coming back to Indiana Jones after this. This is for sure bookended, done. Because Harrison Ford is, A, he's too old, and B, he said, yeah, I'm not coming back to play this character anymore. And I would love it for them to just be done with it.
And financially, this is not doing too hot.
Yeah, no, financially it's done.
Well, I'll take Star Wars. You think Star Wars... We all went and saw it, minus maybe Rise of Skywalker. But, like, Force Awakens, I saw 5 times in theaters. Last Jedi, I went and saw 3 or 4 times in theaters.
I saw that 5 times, yeah.
This one, they were hoping that people were going to go see it and then come back and see it 5 times. And people aren't. They go see it once and go, oh, all right. Or everybody's waiting for it to get on Disney+.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, and this is a video I actually have in the works, but... Disney's just kind of sabotaging their business model, honestly, with Disney Plus, because now, again, this is not backed by consumer research. This is just my opinion.
Gospel according to Zach.
Right. But you look at what's happened with Pixar's reputation in the past few years.
Oh, man.
And, like, say what you will about the quality of their movies. You know, if you think a lot of them aren't too great or whatever in these past...
Say plenty about that subject.
No, there's a whole other video about Pixar. And
I mean, like I said, I'm writing one right now. But it's a shame that, like, things happen the way they did with the pandemic and Disney Plus, because now people have gotten accustomed to their movies, like, getting put on Disney Plus straight on there day one rather than going to theaters, because now they're like, oh, it's like, well, why should I go to theaters now if it's going to be there in a month?
Well, considering they get 100% of the profits, I'm sure they're fine with that. In a lot of ways, they're still getting people paying $8 a month for millions of users. That's a pretty big number case that they have to go for why Disney Plus is still around.
I don't know. That's a lot of money they're dumping on those movies with only subscriber returns.
Possibly. But
I'll say this. It will be interesting to see what the way forward is, especially with what Bob Iger said yesterday or today or whenever you said that, where he's like, it's getting too much. People are lacking focus on Disney products or whatever. He said, like, it'll be interesting to see what the way forward is now. Mm-hmm. Especially with Marvel movies kind of taking a nosedive after Ant-Man and Star Wars movies rightfully needing a break, which they're not really going to give anymore because Ahsoka comes out in, 3 weeks, 4 weeks or something?
Something like that.
Honest Trailer said it best. At the end of the Mandalorian Season 3 video, they were like, you know, the best part about these things is every once in a while they just go away. Disney needs to let Marvel rest. They need to let...
If only they had some kind of device to let them go back in time.
Oh my gosh.
Something dial of sorts. Change their destiny, as it were.
Where are we? Is this ancient Greece? It's like...
Honestly, that was a pretty sweet plot hole. I think it would have been cool to watch them, like, sneak around 1930s Germany, or 1940s Germany.
Oh, they have this whole section where Indiana Jones feels so vindicated because he's talking about continental drift, but then a minute later they find out that doesn't matter. Archimedes just made the dial to go back to him anyway. It's like all of these points that they're bringing up throughout the whole movie don't matter at all. All the research that was done, all the numbers and dates that they wrote down, It literally is just a trap to send people back to Archimedes on the certain day.
It's just undercutting their own story, really.
It's like they don't, and it's like you don't even know what their goal is until about 10 minutes before the end of the movie. He doesn't, like, Mads Mikkelsen doesn't talk about what his motivation is until he's getting dressed in his Nazi uniform on the plane after Harrison's been shot, after they already have the dial.
Yeah, to basically replace Hitler, more or less.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I guess that's your plan. How much longer is in the movie? Only 5 minutes? Alright. Clearly this is going to work out for you, eh? And he doesn't even die in a cool way. That's one of the Indiana Jones staples. The villain dies in a cool way.
I still think the best villain death in the whole Indiana Jones mythos is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
What, Belloc?
Belloc's clay
Melting.
No, his head explodes. Remember they have the body.
The other guy melts.
Yeah, the other two guys melt, but God's freaking head explodes.
Right, that was the coolest thing ever.
I mean, Last Crusade had a revolutionary technique to have the guy age right in front of everyone.
That was an awesome death.
Dust. And even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had their whole aliens decided to just take her with them, and she blows up and dies. And then it's too much. Like she got exactly
Freaking aliens just like staring. It's like
villain endings. And what happens to Mads Mikkelsen? He just falls out of the plane and dies, I guess.
By the
He's
way,
in the plane when it crashes, right?
Well, yeah, he's in the plane when it crashes. And they just find him on the beach.
Oh yeah, he's dead. Yeah.
Also, can we stop for a second and think that, like, there were a lot of, like, gory parts where I was like, Mads Mikkelsen's death, where I was like, whoa, wait a second.
It's a burnt corpse right there.
Burnt corpse, what are we doing here?
I mean, he just grabs his watch. And then he gives the watch to Indy, so I'm like, so whose watch is he wearing in the tomb?
No, he kept it. He didn't give it to Indy.
No, it was on top of the dial that he handed back.
Oh. Well, didn't she give him back the dial?
No, she took the dial, because that's how they got back to...
Oh.
So whose watch was on... I was hoping that was a sign, and that it was Indiana Jones' watch, because didn't he have the whole scene in the beginning of the movie?
That's like, my father's watch.
That's my father's watch.
Yeah.
He took my watch. And I was hoping that would be a moment where that's Indy in the tomb right there.
That would have been a wild ending. That would have saved the whole movie, actually.
No, she punched him, so...
If that had been Indiana Jones's body there, that would have been a wild ending. That actually probably would have saved the whole movie.
And I was like, oh, that's a pretty interesting thing. Like, there's a watch, there's a skeleton in here where it's not supposed to be.
Maybe originally that was supposed to be Indiana Jones's body.
I'm sure they had like 15 ending ideas that they went through and discussed. And
can you imagine? Have you guys ever watched Community? There's an episode where they do different timelines with the dice. That would have been a really interesting way. Like the dial had like calculated 6 different timelines. That would have been an interesting way to do this.
Just go Multiverse of Madness on Indiana Jones.
Oh man!
Or not even that. Go full Clue.
Maybe we could have had a movie where Antonio Banderas lived for more than 2 minutes.
It's the easiest paycheck Antonio Banderas has ever made.
Act like a Spanish pirate for a couple of minutes and make up some garbage about the bends not existing if you're only down there for 2 minutes.
Yeah, as one who's done scuba diving, that's a load of crap.
Even my mom was like, yeah, that's how the bends work.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
That was hilarious.
It's based on partial pressures and how fast you go up in nitrogen in your blood.
And then, like, they shoot everyone, including Antonio Banderas, except for the 3 characters, and they don't need to keep the boys. They should have shot the boy. They should have shot Wombat. It's like
Jared's going scorched earth.
The Nazis. It's one of those things. I hate it when characters are stupid or act out of character just because the movie needs to happen. The Nazis had already shown that they were willing to shoot on sight all of the educational staff at the college.
Yeah.
But when they see Harrison Ford, they are walking next to Harrison Ford, and they don't shoot him, even though they don't know that he's an important character.
Right, you're talking about like in the vault at the very beginning?
At the very beginning of the vault. They literally shot his 2 co-workers, and there's this scene where he is about 3 feet away from the main blonde trigger-happy Nazi, and he grabs the notes, and he's just stumbling away, and the guy's like, well, what do I do? gun in hand, when he's already shown that he is perfectly fine shooting people for no hesitation. Why? Because the movie needs to happen. Why is everyone shooting at the spot where Harrison Ford was a minute ago in the black market scene? Well, because Harrison Ford needs to stumble away really quick.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Characters being stupid just so that the movie can happen always kills me. Because it's like,
It's
why?
bad writing.
Why is he doing this? Why didn't he just shoot Harrison Ford right there?
Why is he doing that?
Is he
Why are you running?
But that's like 90% of this movie. People teleport around to where they need to be. Like, they show up randomly in different areas.
That happens a lot.
How'd they find him on the water?
They just happen to teleport over there on their own boat.
Yeah, weren't they in a helicopter?
And then they
magically find him out in the middle of the...
And things just happen because, well, they need to happen. That's how the movie goes. Why is Indiana Jones not wanted for murder anymore? Because the movie, we need to have this happy ending.
That's right. I thought that as soon as we got out of the movie.
What?
He was blamed for the people that died in the college.
My thought, she says that the Afro CIA lady
says dispatched very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't have very long in the movie at all.
For calling a person a sugar happy cracker.
Yeah. She says that, oh, we knew that your guys killed them. I guess she told local authorities or something. I think that's the plot hole.
Well, she never says that. She's like, this thing's over. We're taking you home. And then he kills her. And it's like, oh, okay. I guess that's over then. He's still wanted for murder.
Maybe Phoebe Waller-Bridge passed.
How did Sala find him in the middle of New York City when he's wanted for murder? Who knows? He was just there. He just happened to be driving along the street.
Again, he's being dragged along for the movie just because they need him to.
Also, he's going to go... I don't know if you guys caught this. When he's going to fly to Tangier, he doesn't even take the hat with him, or the whip. Sala gets it out from under his bed, packs it for him, and puts it in his suitcase.
Why did the Nazis drag him halfway across the island to the secret Nazi base they just happened to have on the island?
That was the only plot hole that I was like, how the freak did they know it was going to be right there?
They didn't.
Like, did they just have a
Nazi base? They must have Nazi bases everywhere. And they just happened to go to the right one.
Yeah, what?
They might as well just set the movie in Argentina or something.
See, that would be a good thing for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Find Hitler down in Argentina.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, man. That leads me to...
This is for signing my father's book. Ouch.
Oh, yeah, that would have been fun.
I love that part of Last Crusade. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
The one thing Hitler's looking for, and he just dumps it off right then and there.
Son.
It's amazing. That whole sequence when they go into Nazi Germany is so funny.
It teaches you everything you need to know about Hitler. Just made a lot of dumb decisions.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
That describes it.
I mean, besides the fact that he was
a monster. He's a Nazi.
Besides the fact...
That's the bad word in this movie.
Nazi. Are you still a Nazi? That I think is my favorite line. My memory's a little fuzzy. Are you still a Nazi?
That's the last thing I really want to say about this movie is just like...
still a Nazi.
Nazi.
No, not so much that as just like... Again, I do appreciate that the last 20 minutes are as ballsy as they are. And, you know, with what happens in Syracuse and whatnot. If they had the whole storyline of going back in time to 1939, I think that would have been probably the easier and safer choice to make. But I also think that would have been just a lot more thematically appropriate because they're trying to build up Indy's arc in this movie as him basically, you know, living in the past and wanting to make this perfect life.
Wanting to join history.
Yeah, wanting to join history and making sure that his stamp was indelible and wanting to kind of change the trajectory of his later life. If you had that kind of similar thing going on with the Nazis and wanting to try to change history and make sure everything planned out for them, that could lead into a very natural conflict for Indy where he's like, I spent so much of my life fighting against these guys. I'm not just going to allow them to get their way and then...
Even if it gets me what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that
been good.
I think that would have been a really great thematic conflict. And there were bits of that here and there, especially with like the scene where he talks about his grief over Mutt and everything. But again, I think that just was a byproduct of this movie being as messy in the final cut as it was.
If he was the main character, I figured that could have happened. Like that very well.
Man, you are not.
It's like the movie's called Indiana Jones or something.
It's called Wombat in the Dial of Destiny.
Oh, gosh.
Wombat Jones. That's the Rise of Jones. That's what this
Rise
movie is. Someone should have asked her what her last name is. And she should have
Oh
said
my
Jones.
gosh. Can you imagine if at they cut to the ice cream shop at the end and what's your name? Wombat. Wombat what? Wombat Jones. Dude, people would have burned down movie theaters.
That
Right?
would have been beautiful.
How are you?
Wombat,
What's your name?
Wombat Jones.
I'm an archaeologist. No,
So-
you're a person that steals archaeology.
To be fair, she did lie about graduating college. She's not actually an archaeologist.
True.
No, that's the point. That she's saying that she's an archaeologist now because she's filling in these shoes.
Overall, I think this movie, I thought that the first part of this movie, probably 15, 20 minutes, were good to me. I thought they were good. I thought it was funny.
That's just
Mm-hmm.
because you saw the Nazis.
Killing Nazis.
Scalping them Nazis.
There's a better revisionist history movie right there.
In my time, it's 1939. I like to drink egg creams and fight Nazis. Freaking Spider-Man Noir.
More like
yeah.
Spider Bogart.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that was an Indiana Jones
Jones.
movie, and we saw it.
Cool. Well, thank you all for listening in on this conversation. Feel free to watch the movie on your own and form your own opinion. We're just a few guys that get very opinionated on things made by Lucasfilm from time to time.
Because we do have the correct opinions. It's never happened.
I mean, exactly. You don't have to listen to any other review. I mean, we're all you've got.
Can you wait?
And we're all you need.
Can you wait until Mandalorian season 4?
I don't know about that.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2.
Ugh, no.
Did you see
No.
that show got nominated for Best Limited Series?
Yes,
of all
I did.
things?
I saw all the nominations. I was like, are you
Need
joking?
any other proof that the Emmys
Dude,
are a
the
joke?
only one that really deserves a nomination at the Emmys is Andor.
Yeah.
Anything with Andor deserves a nomination.
Or is the only great Star Wars content we've had in years.
Speaking of which, I saw the season 2 trailer for that show.
2017.
Since Rogue One. Is that 2017?
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there.
2017. Still a few years.
I really did like Rogue One, though.
That was great.
It's a good movie.
Watch that instead of Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny.
Fair enough. All right, well, if you guys liked what you heard here, feel free to give this video a like and then subscribe to the channel. Join that notification squadron so you don't miss out on any future videos that I put out with these guys or any that I put on my own. Otherwise, thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a good Indiana Jones.
Hasta luego.
See you around, kid.